to the very first sales meeting, semi-training on a couple of things, in our new office, and in 2021. So, Wyatt, you want to start off?
You have that link.
Or do you want to start off? You can.
I can just go through a couple of things real quick.
Okay.
Has everybody looked at statistics for 2020?
No.
Okay, numbers are still up despite COVID, so just amazing. Interest rates should stay low. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican. Home sales drive the economy, so I think we're going to do fine. It's just inventory, so what I'm wanting to do is really push us getting listings. We need listings. The market needs listings. So kind of some of the campaigns I'm working on, advertising stuff, is going to focus on listings. I think buyers are just falling in people's laps, but we need people to list with us. So that's really all I have. I expect everybody to have 4 listings next week, or you're out of here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Other than that, that's all I got.
I'll jump right on that one.
That's
But
it.
it is,
have
the
4 listings
inventory.
next week.
The inventory's terrible.
God, it's
There's
the
nothing.
worst.
There's absolutely nothing.
I've
I
got
heard
a-
somebody say last week, I don't even get excited when I have a buyer because I don't have anything to sell them.
No, I mean, I can tell you, my
Right
guy
there.
out of Atlanta, we've been looking for a year, and we've looked at 6 houses. By the time he calls me back, there's usually 6 or 7 offers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I told him, my nephew, he had to buy a house sight unseen
Yeah.
because they have to be here by the end of the month. And that's where we
I
are.
noticed a lot of little homes that are overpriced and especially in River Plantation are sitting for a while.
Oh, the condos are not moving.
I know.
Unless you're in the downtown corridor.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
It's because people don't want to be put in those little spaces, and that confinement. Everybody wants yards and everybody wants someplace where they can.
Or if they are going to be in that space, they want to be able to walk everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other trade-off, right?
Well, River Plantation you can walk pretty much, so that's the only problem.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So is that all for you?
That's all.
Okay. All right. So let me look at this real quickly. One thing, and I'm preaching to the choir here, but I have to say it. Hey there. The paperwork being signed, when paperwork is signed, I know I harp on this, and please understand, I don't personally give a rip when I get anything. But as far as compliance goes and failure to supervise, that's what they're nailing everybody to the wall on right now, is failure to supervise. So nothing has changed since last year, but any paperwork that's signed, I've got to have it either in my email, or you just shoot me a text and say, this is in transaction desk. I don't have a problem going in transaction desk and printing documents if you don't want to shoot emails. But they have to be to me within 24 hours. And not when both sides sign, just when anybody signs. If you're going to get them back to back, then within 24 hours. You don't have to send me one and then send me a second one completed. But, if you're waiting on somebody for, whatever length of time, go ahead and get that to me. Because basically, if they walk in the door and they're changing the way that used to, they came in, they sat down, they said, pull me 3 to 5 files, and you went at an audit, basically. We have not been audited since I've been here, and I've been here 12 years.
Oh, God, knock on something.
12 years.
No, you've
14
been
years,
here
not 12, 14 years.
Knock on wood.
So we have not been audited in 14 years. It's coming. I mean, that's why I was saying that. It is going to come. Now,
Especially since you've moved here.
the
where
thing
more people
that-
can see you.
what they do more now than they did before is they will send an email and they'll give you a length of time to get them 3 to 5 files, and that means digitally get it to them. And so that means you have to have your finger on all your paperwork. So that's why it's very important to use transaction desk and keep everything in there. And Wyatt are going to talk about the repercussions if these guidelines that we're setting aren't followed. I was told yesterday in a Zoom class that, they have instrumented, one of the brokers in the class said she's begging people for their proof of E&O insurance. And we were all like, it's ridiculous. I mean, we're all adults. This is our business. It's our livelihood. Every year, every 2 years, when you renew your E&O, I need a copy of it. I mean, and I'll always ask for it, but I probably got 8 out of our 14 people that still haven't gotten me what I've asked them when I sent that out 2 or 3 weeks ago, whenever that
I paid
was.
mine back in December and I still haven't gotten it.
Yeah. So, that's one thing. We're gonna come up with we're faced with the same issues that we were last year. We are going to set, and we first said the 3rd Tuesday, but if we're gonna do a sales meeting and a training meeting or training session, which is what Wyatt would like to do each month, we're gonna probably bump the sales meeting to the 2nd Tuesday of each month. And then we'll space, and I will send out, there's a gnat in my face, sorry. I'll send out an email with every day outlined. Sometimes things are gonna come up and we'll have to bump it a day or two here or there, but as general rule of thumb, they should all be in that email, and you can put it on your calendars to put that in there. And then the training session is gonna also be hopefully confined to 1 hour. If I'm going to prepare for each of these each month, if I have one person show up, then we'll have the meeting. If I don't have anybody show up, it's going to be taped and it will come out to people. What we don't want to happen is everybody fall on, well, they'll send me the video, I don't have to go to the meetings. There's going to be a mandatory number of meetings that everybody has to attend per year. We've got to talk about that. But we can't make your hours mandatory because we're independent contractors, but we can establish company guidelines that you have to do, or you're welcome to go somewhere else if you don't like that. And that is not what we want to happen at all. But one thing I want to talk about quickly is Code of Ethics. They have added an entirely new section to the Code of Ethics. It's focused. I've watched 2 of the 3 videos that they've put out, NAR has put out, but it is concentrating on hate speech and posting things that we would all think that nobody would post, but they're posting things about religions and about nationalities, and they're asking us to watch and see, and anybody can turn in anybody for any post. So don't think that it's just somebody that you're friends with or whatever that's seeing what you're doing. If you're a realtor, you're supposed to abstain from any of that kind of postings. So it's a huge section that they've added. You'll have to do the Code of Ethics class, and they'll go into it. But there are videos on NAR that you can watch that will go into that in a deeper fashion, which I think is very important because Code of Ethics is certainly something that we can all get in trouble on. One thing, okay, I'm sure you've noticed there have been changes in the terminology on some of our forms. His and her are no longer there. That's now dual. When you see that, that means his and her. No, you can't refer to a Jack and Jill bathroom as a Jack and Jill bathroom anymore. They don't refer to the master bedroom as the master bedroom. You can't use the master word because of correlating to things that we've all heard about. So just we all kind of snicker, and I do too, but we've got to be conscious of it because we can get in trouble for that. So, and there are people, just like there are people that watch how many cars and numbers of people get together on Thanksgiving and Christmas that turn people in, that turn their neighbors in. There are people that there's testers that they have out there with this Code of Ethics change. And then there's just agents in general who want to get other people in trouble. So just be conscious of what you say. I've goofed and I've called it a master bedroom twice this past 2 weeks because that's what we've called it. But it needs to be referred to as a main bedroom. So just pay attention to that, look at the forms and see the changes where that's concerned. One thing that I have not enforced, and I've been told in 2 different Zoom broker classes that we are, I mean, I know this, we are supposed to be saving all of our text messages, and we're supposed to be printing those and keeping them in your file. Now, my advice and what I'm starting to do is, it's okay if you shoot a text about a change in date or a change in location, but if somebody shoots you a text and it's about negotiation, tell them that you'll have to get to your email, and you're going to answer that with an email. That our company policy is we don't do any negotiations via text. Because if you have an email, even if you delete the email, it's in your deleted emails, and we could always go back and find that. But if you delete a text, it's gone. So, and just because we delete a text doesn't mean who you sent the text to has deleted it. So they might have proof of a text that you've sent, but you no longer do because you clean out your text messages or whatever. So, for situation changes, schedules, that kind of stuff, or a yes or a no, or a, scheduling an inspection, you can handle that via text, something like that. But if it's something of substance, just do it via email. Do not answer, and just blame it on me, blame it on your broker. That we're not going to do that via text, that we're going to, because there have been numerous lawsuits over the last 12 months, but also before that, where people got sued, and the person that was suing the people came into court with all of the text messages throughout the entire transaction, and the person that was being sued, the realtor and the company, didn't have any of the text messages. And there was a difference in, as we all know, text messages can sound different than you mean them. So that's just a CYA. We're just gonna, and I didn't even say that to you to approve that or whatever, but just only use text messages for short here and there answers, but anything of substance or negotiations, just say I'll have to answer that via email.
That reminds me, I've given this before, but Bonnie, I'm not sure if you have it. You should. Remember, if you're doing deals, you got to use the Poplar Hill Realty email address. And your signature block needs to have the text in there that says nothing about this email is contractual, and it's better worded than that. Because you don't want, you can negotiate via email, but nothing about that becomes binding, and the parties, you are, what's the word, indemnified or whatever, from that. That's what that signature line does.
How does this apply to phone calls then?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you're on the phone negotiating, talking
Yeah,
to the
but you
client
follow up with paper.
Yeah.
Nothing
Okay.
verbal is set in stone. So you
Until
can
you
talk
have
all day long,
signatures
but
from
you
all
go to
parties.
do your forms right after you talk and get it on paper.
Got it, okay.
But I mean,
Yeah.
a signed contract's gonna trump anything written, right?
That's the point.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
what the
Oh,
email
yeah.
says. It's nothing is binding until it's in
Right.
writing, signed by all parties.
And if y'all don't have that, let me know. I can copy it and paste it to you, and all you have to do is go in your email settings and paste it in there with your signature, with your logo and all that stuff. But yeah, that's very important as
Yeah,
well.
I don't have that in my email.
On the bottom, any kind of a right, because we also have it, we adapted it last year, and it also includes advising your client that if they get a phone call from you or any request of financial information, that it's not from me, I'll send that to you. So basically, because that stuff's handled by the type, when the wire fraud stuff started happening, we added that to our bottom line of our email signature. So I'll show you, I'll send you what I've got. You can
Okay.
either copy and paste it, whatever you want to do with it.
I mean, if you follow up, no matter what communication you're talking about with a contract, it's not really necessary to keep all the text messages, right? I mean, you're not, or do you have to keep both?
If there's any, I was told in the 2 classes I was in, keep your text messages. If it's anything other than a scheduling or something like that.
Inspection tomorrow.
Yeah, because texts aren't legal documents. They're not considered legal documents. some emails can be, but in these two out of how many ever lawsuits, they used the text messages and the judge listened to the text messages. So whether or not that's a legal document, it carries weight in the judge understanding what's happened in that transaction. So I'm just going to keep, I'm not going to keep, silly ones like that, but if I answer anything, at all, I'm just going to, and it's very simple. You just, if you're in your text message, you go down, you forward it to your email, and then you just print it off your email. So it's very simple to do. But I would say, if anything other than just a normal answer of a question or, calendar booking, or I'd say keep them, probably. I have not been doing that, so it's going to be,
Now I'm waiting for it.
it's
Yeah.
going to be a big deal. But I'd rather do it than, wind up where these two people are. Okay, speaking of lawsuits, this to me is astonishing, and you can ask Wyatt when it occurred in the Zoom that I was on the other day. And I'm going to shorten it, but so there was an agent who, there's a lawsuit pending, and you're going to laugh when you hear the reason for the lawsuit. Quote, the agent is being sued, and therefore the company is being sued, and the broker, for not performing a home inspection. Now, I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. So what happened is, this particular agent made the mistake, which I try to, at arm's length, any dealings with home inspections for this very reason. But this particular agent went through the home inspection with her client, her buyer. I personally tell my buyers, the home inspector really doesn't want you there unless it's the last 30 minutes of the inspection. And they don't, because it slows them up and it costs more
You're in the
money.
way,
But this particular agent took her clients out, went out for the whole kit and caboodle of how many ever hours it took, at a minimum 2, probably 3. And she walked around with her clients and followed the inspector around with her clients. And she, the agent, commented on things to do with the home inspection. Oh, that needs to be this, and that needs to be this, and that is an advert, which it may have been. But so because she took herself out of her lane as a realtor and made comments about home inspection things that she should have kept her mouth shut about, she's being sued because her client, the buyer, said she should have known more. Since she commented about all of this stuff, she should have known more. There was a problem with the home inspection, something the home inspector didn't find or didn't put in his report, and so they've sued. The buyer has sued their agent, the home inspector, and yada yada yada. And so you think that's crazy, but I came out of my office and I was like, you're not going to believe this, and one of the attorneys was in our Zoom class, and he said, it's absolutely an active lawsuit. This is a real lawsuit. This is why the agent, because we have a hard time, me included, we look at the inspection part of the process and we think, how can I be a help to my client? How can I make them think I'm earning my money? Well, you're not earning your money by being a home inspector. You're earning your money by being a realtor, not a home inspector. So just know that if you open your mouth and comment about anything that you don't know about, it can come back and bite you in the butt.
Well,
and it is for this person.
I want to clarify, even if you know about it, you
Oh,
gotta
yeah.
stay in your lane.
Yeah.
I know from an ego standpoint, you want to look like the expert.
You know it.
Okay.
You want to look like you know your
Let me
stuff.
ask a question though. This is where I get confused on this. If we knowingly see something, don't we have to state it? So, like for example, if I'm with if we're walking a property and they've done an inspection, and all of a sudden I look and I see a foundation crack, and I don't say anything, Am I not liable for not saying something?
You're not liable for not saying something, but you don't want to say this is a foundation crack and it needs to be addressed, because
Okay.
it may not be a true foundation crack. That's
We
when
have
you
this looked
call
at by an
in
expert.
a structural
Right.
person,
Okay.
and that's how
'Cause I
you
know there's a
handle
weird
that.
line there, right?
There's a
Like-
very,
Weird line.
very short line.
When you state something as fact that's outside our realm, then I think that's where we get in trouble.
Gotcha.
In our Parsons case, I can say, that's a massive crack, I'd like to have that looked.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
I'm not
that
saying
makes
that's
sense.
a
Okay.
structural
And the other
problem.
thing you can also do, which we lean on home inspectors, because they're the experts, they're licensed, they're the professionals. But we've had a conversation about a situation, and I'm going to talk about it, where home inspectors miss things. They miss things. You know, about as far as the radon testing that one time.
Raccoons in the attic.
Right. Okay. So this is a perfect learning illustration as well. Joseph had a deal. Not going to call out who the inspector was. He couldn't get in the attic because it was the little square thing in the closet. Okay. So he put on his report. If I'm saying anything wrong,
Yeah, you're
correct
right.
me.
Yeah.
Put on his report that he didn't have access to the attic. And so they closed, the people moved in, and a little bit after that, they kept hearing noises in the attic.
Year
And
later.
so,
A year later. Yeah.
a year later. Okay. And so, they called out a person, a critter person or whatever, and got access, and there was a family of how many?
Oh, it was a lot of raccoons.
Raccoons in the attic, babies,
Yeah.
parents,
Yeah.
the whole kit and caboodle.
$900 in damage.
$900 in damage to the house from the raccoons. So I'm not saying, and I don't know how to solve that, as far as you don't want necessarily to tell somebody to cut the hole bigger, but how do you deal with that? If the inspector says I can't get up in there and physically he can't, what do we do next? That's my question. I'm going to shoot Todd Scholler a question about that, because we're liable and liable and liable and liable the further out we go. And their mentality is, if they're going to file suit, they're going to file suit against anybody and everybody involved in the transaction. Doesn't matter whether you said or did anything. And it doesn't matter whether you're right or wrong, you have to defend yourself and pay for that. And certain things aren't covered under E&O. So don't think, well, I've got an E&O, so I'm okay. Their specialty is not paying sometimes. So,
That's the truth.
you got to think about, you got to think about that. So that was something that, Joseph, but my point, going back to what we were just talking about before the raccoons, what I'm going to start doing is, when I go around and I'm looking and showing a property, I already make a list of things that I notice. I don't comment about them necessarily unless there's a big hole in the wall or something to the buyer, but I keep that list, and then when I get the home inspector's report, I sort of cross-reference my list and his list, and I'm not going to have everything on it that he does, but if there's something, a foundation crack that worries me and it's not on the inspector's report, then I'm going to call and ask him, did you not notice this, blah, 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 and do we need to get a structural guy out there? So you don't want to comment to your client that you're a home inspector, but that doesn't mean you can just wash your hands and say, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, because we still are supposed to represent our clients to the best of our ability.
Well, that's a good idea to walk through before that home inspector. That's a
I do
really
it when
good
I
idea.
take buyers for showings, because you don't know if they're going to want to make an offer on it or not, and I just take notes on the back sheet of my showing sheet, and so that I can remember what they didn't like, what they did like, because especially if we have 30-something showings like a lot of us are doing now, I can't remember one house from the other if I don't have notes. But I do also keep notes of crack over master bedroom, blah blah door.
Main bedroom.
Oh yeah, see, main, exactly. Thank you.
Or owner's suite,
Well, you
which
know,
bathroom?
Owner's suite, yeah. What does that
Michelle,
mean?
Which
I'm
that works.
sure
That still works
I've
good.
heard that there was a lawsuit over somebody that did not present to their buyers that form. Do you want a home inspection? Do you not want a home inspection? That was never presented to the buyers, and then they came to close, and moved into the
That,
house. And there
I
was
didn't
so
talk
much-
about that, but that could be a lawsuit.
That
If
was
they
so
weren't in,
much damage that
Yeah.
there was a lawsuit on that because
Oh,
they
yeah.
didn't present the form to them.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it at all. And that's why these forms are done to basically alleviate us from having to come up with stuff like that. So, you know, and we talked yesterday in this Zoom class about special stipulations. The rule of thumb really is there is very few things that is not addressed in the additional clauses document that they've drafted for us. And if there is something that you have to put in special steps, Todd Scholler says it needs to go before your broker before it goes to the other side. Because when you write anything in special steps, if it's applicable to anything else in that contract, it overrides that contract. So one of our agents 2 years ago, and he was new, didn't realize the depth that the contract went into about an appraisal. And so he put, and this doesn't make sense, I know, but he copied and pasted the clause about the appraisal process and put it under special steps. Well, what was in the clause differs from what's in the purchase and sale agreement by a couple of statements. So he didn't send it because I caught that, but all his new agents, their stuff comes to me before it goes to the other side. But because what he posted had a couple of things in it that differed, his was less coverage under the appraisal process than what was in the purchase and sale. Had he sent that to the other side and it had been executed, it would have overridden that. So it null and voids whatever is in that, every single line of whatever is in that purchase and sale agreement. If you write something in special steps, it overrides anything that's in there about that topic. So just know and I'm going to do a recap of what we've talked about today in an email format, but from now on, if you do anything under special steps, we need to see it before it goes to the other side, because that's where we all start kind of playing attorney. And that's where we can just absolutely get nailed to the wall by doing that. So whether you're a veteran or whether you're new or whatever, anything in special steps needs to come to me and let me see it before it goes to the other side. Because if it's executed, we can't do diddly squat about it. So, so that's that.
Can I ask you a question about
Absolutely.
special stipulations? Isn't there a place in the forms that has special stipulations that you can copy and paste?
It's the additional clauses
Okay.
is the form. And yes, if you're in the purchase and sale agreement, there's tabs up at the top. One of those tabs is clauses.
But you still want us, even if we put one of those in there, you
No,
still...
if you use one of the ones I should have made that clear. If
Okay.
you use one of the ones that's in the clauses,
Okay.
then go for it.
Okay.
That's written up by attorneys, and I can't do anything, and I wouldn't want to do anything with that. But if it's something else that you've gotten creative about that you say, I need to word it this way, I don't see that in in the clauses section, and you
Okay.
create something, then that's what
Okay.
I'm talking about. Thank you
Okay.
for saying that, because I did not say that.
Let me add one thing.
Builder.
Do what?
That new build, there was a builder who used tar forms, but wanted their own written special stipulation, like for their builder things. They had it written up. So.
And that's, you got new construction.
Oh, God, that's all I'm doing.
I've got new construction in Nolensville. If you can, and most of the time you can't, most builders on new construction make it mandatory that you use their contract.
And you follow
That
that.
contract is 110% slanted to protect the builder, the seller, or the seller, if the builder's not the seller. That doesn't mean that you can't ask, can we do this, or this? A lot of the times they'll say yes.
Yeah.
Some of the times they'll say no.
Well, inspections is a great one because some builders will say no appraisal, no inspection, but we'll give you a warranty to offset.
Mm-hmm.
There's that. I've run into that a couple times.
Well, none of them that I know of do appraisals.
They don't allow appraisals.
They don't allow
And
appraisals.
One of them allowed an
well, let me
inspection,
say
one
this.
didn't.
You have the right to do an appraisal as a buyer, but you can't use it to get out of the contract. That's the difference. You have the right to do an inspection in any scenario, but in that, which I've not had them say no inspection, but,
I've had inspection optional, no inspection.
yeah. They have the right to do it, but you
Mhm.
can't use it as a contingency to get out of the contract.
Right. The interesting thing about the new construction right now, and I think it's something that these regulatory groups are gonna have to address, there's gonna have to be stronger stipulations on what they can and can't get away with. Because some of the contracts are, I'm lucky, right? Jeff had, with GAW Properties was pretty good. The one down in Thompson Station I'm working on, their form was better than most.
Mhm.
And they said, oh yeah, if you wanna do inspection, you can. My buyer chose not to, but it wasn't like you can't.
Mhm.
But some of those, like that one property we looked at down there, the contract was one page.
Yeah. The
One
one in Thompson
page.
Station is
It
2
was nothing.
pages.
It was basically, you wanna buy this
Regular
house,
size.
thanks. I'm like, no way. I mean, I literally had to tell my nephew, I would think really long and hard about signing a contract like this because
Well, it's enter at
you're
your own
exposed.
risk. I mean, it really is enter at your own risk. And I'm not anti-new construction, but you just have to be able to tell your buyers you're really unprotected. I mean, as far as either you want it or you don't. And if you want it bad enough, you'll do. And I'm not talking about anything illegal or unethical. I'm just talking about form-wise, contract-wise. And it's frustrating. I will say mine out in Nolensville, his contract was front and back, regular size paper, so generic it was ridiculous. But he did have all of the additional forms, TAR forms, with that when he sent it to me. So, that made me feel a little bit better. But as far as contingencies to get out, they don't have any. I mean, unless they can't get a loan, that's, and even that is 2 sentences. I mean, it's, it's slanted. It's just slanted. So,
New construction financing is your out.
yeah, that's about it. That's literally about it.
Let me say one thing real quick.
Sure.
This goes back to the talking about being an inspector. It is really easy to cross the legal line, and don't hesitate to refer them to an attorney, refer them to their attorney. Who's ever doing the closing may not be an attorney, but they might have an attorney in the office. And if it's something simple, the attorney will answer the question as part of the closing process, and it's their attorney. So, be careful. I know we want to say we know things, but when we start getting into the legal area, man, that's where we get sued bad.
And a lot of times I'll even say, that's not in my line of what I do, but I can have this attorney contact you if you don't have one to talk to. Because, like, Kate at Chapman and Rosenthal, it doesn't matter whether she's doing a deal or not. She answers my questions just like that.
Yeah.
So, you can be that facilitator to get them connected if they don't have an attorney to talk to. But yeah, and everybody knows that in the world that we're in, how many lawsuits occur. And so it's not like you're shirking your responsibility, but your person wants to talk to the right expert or about the right issue anyway. So that's all you're doing is connecting and being that liaison, whether it's, a structural engineer or whether it's a this or that, And we harp on inspection only because that's such a large thing that so many things can go wrong in. But, and again, the people that are here, I'm not, I'm preaching to the choir. One little thing that I want to talk about real quickly, is don't have the attitude and don't give the attitude or the answer to your clients that, oh yeah, we can extend that if we need to. Because both parties have to agree to an extension. And if one doesn't, and you didn't do something that you could have done earlier in the transaction to get it done in a timely fashion, time is of the essence per the contract, then yes, that can come back on you because you've postponed doing that, or you did that banking on doing an extension, but when that extension is denied by the other side, there's nothing to be done with it. You've lost the transaction, and if your buyer's ticked off enough they can do something with that. So just don't, and I'm guilty of that. I do it, I think, oh, well, if we needed to, especially with resolution period of the inspection. Oh, if we need to extend that. So I don't do that anymore. I don't put 3 days, I put 5 days in the resolution. Because if you've got a deal going on and it hits you on a Friday and you gotta get people out for estimates, you can't resolve that in 3 days. Because they're not gonna come out on the weekends, most of them. And if they do, you're gonna pay out the wazoo, your buyer is. So just don't do that. Do whatever needs to be done whenever it needs to be done, and then you don't have to worry about doing an inspection, because they do turn them down from time to time. Okay, so Wyatt has heard about this. I have a deal going right now on Beach Bend, and Faye and I are in that one together. And I'm going to use this for two purposes. One is you brought up overpricing properties. This property was not priced where it should have been priced to begin with. The client didn't look at comps that we supplied, and she had a number in her head because John Doe said these houses were selling for $30,000-$50,000 more than they really are. So we sat on a listing for 4 or 5 weeks that we had maybe a showing a week. Okay, this is Beach Bend, large yards, not on top of each other, properties that normally go under contract within 12 hours of hitting the market, if not sooner. Even if they need, things done to them, they still go on the market. I mean, they still go under contract. So one thing led to another, and we finally were able to reduce the price, and she agreed to reduce it.
Thank goodness.
$25,000 is what we reduced it for. The day that it hit the reduction, that morning, we had 6 or 7 showings with 3 offers that day or the day after. So
that's hilarious.
we wasted 5-6 weeks of sitting there. Even though it's a property that should have gone under contract, we wasted 5 or 6 weeks of it sitting there with no activity. Strictly only 100% because of the price. So we're under contract. Now, the second half of this is, well, no. The agent on the other side, so we had multiple offers. We had 2 cash offers and 1 homeowner. And they decided to go with the homeowner because it was significantly more. Even though you've got, cash, not as picky in the home inspection, you've got things to weigh out. Cash doesn't always weigh out, but. So this poor guy, very nice guy, the agent on the other side. Brand spanking new agent. This is his first deal. Yay me. So I took it upon myself to, which in the past I haven't always done this. I used to have a pretty hard stance on ask your broker. They're supposed to be there to train you. Ask your broker, da-da-da-da-da. Well, this guy sends me his entire, after telling me he's brand new, first deal, sends me his entire packet. And by entire, I mean his exclusive buyer's agency agreement. I mean his worksheet from the lender for the buyers that had social security numbers on them. I mean every document that stays intra-company, wire fraud, disclaimer, COVID forms. Those things don't get switched sides anymore. They're for your file and your company. And so I did an email after we got through with the purchase and sale agreement, which I basically walked him through what he did in error on the purchase and sale agreement. I did an email to him, and I told him, I said, John, which is not his name,
Well played.
here is,
We can look him
here
up.
is, yeah, you can now because he's under contract. Well, maybe not. I said, here are the documents that you will not get back from me that are now shredded on my end. And I named them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I put on there, I said, this is for your company's eyes only. This is an agreement between you and your client only. Doesn't come to the other side, doesn't come to the other side, and that's what I did all the way through. And I said, and the biggest thing for me is I now have, I shredded it, but I did have financial information regarding your buyer. So I know what they've qualified for. I know their social security numbers. And I said, these are big time things that you could really get into trouble over. And I said, please understand that I am not taking the high road here, but I believe that if a new agent isn't getting what they need, whether he said he had a mentor, clearly the mentor did not look over the whole packet of information. And I said, I want to be that teacher in this scenario because I think you need to understand. And he responded back, very nice. I appreciate your knowing these forms the way that you do. Clearly, I looked you up. You've been doing this a long time. The mentor did not look at every form that I sent you. I said, well, that's imperative. Is it needs to go to your mentor or it needs to go really to your broker. Because I don't know who the mentor is and how much, what they have done. But anyway, so all that to say, even if somebody doesn't know what they're doing, extend some grace. Not everybody takes it as nicely as this guy did, but you also may have to reach across and do their job for them to get it to the closing table. None of us want to do that.
You do that with veteran agents.
But yeah, exactly. But if you have to, just do it and get it done and get your client to the closing table. Don't scold because the thing that Wyatt sent out for us to watch the video on YouTube. That's the one thing that guy talked about was when you, and I'm bad about this because of my personality. Paul calls me a chihuahua in the car because I'm pointing at the 12 cars ahead that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I'm kind of that way with my job. I normally want to say, get yourself trained or go to your broker. I'm not your broker. Go to your, and I'm trying to change that because selfishly, if this guy doesn't get what he needs from where he is, he may come here one day. I don't know. He would get taught more, I can tell you that much. But anyway, all that to say, just be cautious of what you get. Don't just throw something away. If they send it to you by accident, you might just want to say, hey, this really isn't, and every company's different. So, but there's still people out there that think the disclaimer notice is to be switched and, and it's not. But anyway, all that to say.
It used to be a long time ago.
It did. It had two signatures on it
Yeah.
for the seller and the buyer. Now it has one set of signatures on it. That means it's only supposed to be it's you disclosing to your to your client, you're only a realtor. That's the purpose of that form. Again, it's a CYA form for us. I don't need to know if Wyatt's client knows that from Wyatt. I need to know that my client knows that from me, but I don't need his form to say that.
Well, and it just makes sense because it's disclaiming about representation. Well, the other side doesn't represent you,
Right.
so you don't need it.
Okay, so that's got all of that. I said we're going to do sales and training. One thing to remember in what I just talked about, that we talked about in a Zoom class yesterday when I was telling this whole scenario. When you're stuck, even though I shredded the information that had the social security numbers and stuff on it, when you send that, we don't have the cyber control that a title company has or an attorney has or anybody in that realm. They have the walls, the firewalls that people still can get through, but we as realtors don't have that. So that information from this agent is now out there that if we were to get hacked, they can access those people's social security numbers from that. And the other thing about hacking is that is becoming a big deal to where now, not just wire fraud, but hackers are hacking real estate companies because they know that we don't have those cyber walls, the firewalls, and they are integrating themselves via reading emails as a participant in the transaction. So when they're contacting the title companies, they they think that they're part of the transaction. So it's every day, it's something new
I haven't heard
that
one.
we don't know is happening.
I'll tell you, if it were me right now, I would be putting a VPN on anything. I'm
Yeah.
using
Yeah.
smartphone, computer, whatever.
Because they can hack one device, but then they can track
Way
it
around it.
to every other device. So you might not have something on your phone that you have on your iPad or your Apple computer or whatever.
And don't keep the same password for everything.
Right, that's a big
Well,
no-no.
what are you saying that we should put on? What's that?
A VPN.
What is that?
So what it does is when you sign in to your phone and you access a website, or you're on your computer and you're accessing a website, you're not doing it from this network that you're tied into. So if this network's hacked, they can see everything. A VPN will actually route you through remote locations and servers back to where it's going, so people can't track you or follow you. And the
Okay.
services are pretty reasonable. Usually they're $40-50 a year to put them on all your devices.
And see, 40 or 50 bucks a year is nothing compared to being sued and defending
Oh, yeah.
yourself in a lawsuit.
Yeah, you just have to make sure when you sign into something, like if you're going on the web or you're using your phone to access something, you're accessing it through the app, that protective network. It's a virtual protective network. You access it through that when you're doing something on your phone. So if you're going to go on the web and
Okay.
So
send
it's
something,
training yourself to do
yeah,
that.
Yeah, that's hard to do, 'cause I know what you're talking about.
But you have to get a reputable one.
Yeah, there's
actually-
two or
There's
three.
VPN companies that are
Sketchy.
actually,
Involved.
that are
Yeah.
sketchy, that are actually looking at everything you do.
Yeah.
yeah. I would use.
You're paying them so they can steal.
There's
your
two
stuff.
or three I would
Nords.
use.
Yeah.
I mean, I would use Express or maybe Nord, but outside of that, you start getting slim.
I had Steve Bloom come in a year and a half ago
Just last year.
to explain insurance, because your E&O doesn't cover just everything you do. You need business insurance. And part of your business insurance can be data protection, because you're responsible. So, there you go.
Absolutely. Okay, and he can probably talk more about this than I can, and we'll talk about it in further. I'm going to be familiarizing myself with Canva, and so that I can sit down. I've used it, I've played in it, but our graphic design girl is doing some other things with it to make it easier for us. But our goal is to have those templates and whatever we don't have, get her to create postcards, flyers, all that stuff that we've talked about last year. They're there. She's done a whole lot of creating of that stuff. I just don't know it well enough to be able to say, let's sit down and go over it and I'll teach it to you. So you can still use Wyatt to do that stuff. But ideally, I know, especially younger agents, they want to be able to do that kind of stuff sitting on their couch at home, when they're with their kids or whatever. So that's one thing that we're going to be wrapping up too. They have been, and we have been talking about various CRMs and things of that nature. So hopefully we're going to be nailing that down and have that avenue to go to as well. One last thing that what does that mean, Michelle? What does that note mean? Oh, okay. I have been told 2 different times, and I had it happen to me, well, not to me, but to one of my clients, that we did not find out that a closing was not going to happen until 5 days beforehand. So my comment in this is, tell your clients. I mean, we give them the do's and the don'ts. After you get pre-qualified, you don't do these 10 things. We give them that. But having been in here and learning more and listening more to the lending side of things on the inside of it, so my deal was my brother-in-law and his wife. And they had verification of income in the beginning. They did, they passed, they were pre-approved. We went and looked, we found a house, went under contract, and the verification of income is also done towards the end of the deal before closing. Well, my brother-in-law, for the last 2 years, had gotten overtime every single week for 48 months straight, 24 months straight, no, 48 months. And the lender wanted them to put in writing that he would continue to get this overtime till whenever. And he was getting it then. He'd gotten it for 2 years past. Well, his human resources person said, I can't put that in writing. I can't guarantee that he's going to have 16 hours of overtime or whatever it was. And so 5 days, really 4 days. 4 days before closing, it's done. They didn't get it. So don't make your clients think that, and I am guilty of this, and I learned this the hard way, that just the front end of the pre-approval process is the most important, because it's just as important 2 or 3 days before closing, whether it's verification of income, debt to income ratio, or whatever. But 2 people other than me have lost their deals 7 days before closing. So you've got people making moving arrangements, packed up their houses already.
Oh my gosh.
So it's just different now, and I don't really know what to contribute that to. I've never really had that happen in years past, that close to closing. But one person in the Zoom class we were talking about this in had it happen the day before closing, and their
Because
deal.
of verification of their income?
Well, just different things. Mine was verification of income.
So did they close ever?
No, they did not. Whatever their issue was big enough, they didn't close either. And see, my people, Noah and his wife, probably would have looked at maybe going a different route and trying to fix this or da-da-da-da-da, but they were so mentally exhausted from getting from where they started to where they were. They're like, we're not looking right now.
Well, that's another lesson in follow the contract and the timeline and make sure the other side is doing, have they ordered the appraisal? Have they done the things they're supposed to do? So if you're representing the seller, you can be sure the buyer is on track. Because I have to tell sellers all the time,
I know.
it ain't over till it's over.
Yeah.
And it looks good.
And
but
one thing to add to what he just said, that contract, and I was able to keep somebody's earnest money, get their earnest money kept because of these 2 words or 3 words. The appraisal in that contract is to be ordered and paid for within 14 days. So this other side that backed out of our contract in Murfreesboro ordered their appraisal, and we were down to probably 14 days before closing, but they ordered their appraisal, and I said, I need a receipt showing they paid for it, because I was so livid over them backing out. I thought at the very minimum, they put up $3,000 earnest money. At the very minimum, I'm gonna fight tooth and nail to keep this $3,000 for my people who now have to put their house back together and live there, and they still live there, and that was 3 years ago. And the agent called me and said, well, it was ordered. The lender said it was ordered, and I said, I need the receipt or something from the lender showing it was paid for. And she said,
They couldn't
the
produce
buyer thought that he paid for it. The lender doesn't have paper trail of that. I said,
it. So it wasn't really a real appraisal?
No, they appraised it.
No, yeah.
They appraised it, but they didn't do what the contract said do. So we got to keep the earnest money.
And lenders are doing this all the time. They order the appraisal, and then you don't pay for it until the closing.
I know.
It's put in the closing, but that's not what the
That is
contract
not
says.
what the contract says. So they kept $3,000. And I mean, that didn't make up for everything, but it certainly helped them a little bit swallow what had happened to them.
Yeah, it must have really upset them if they still
Oh, they were
haven't moved.
furious. I mean, they didn't have anything hardly other than what they used daily that wasn't packed.
Oh,
And they unpacked everything and put the house back together.
And some of the last minute issues, I've had, well, the appraisal thing, I've had it both ways, where they roll it in and then you pay for it up front.
Right.
But the last minute thing, the last couple deals I've had, where it seems like, why are all these issues coming out of the woodwork the
Now,
day before or 2 days before? Why wasn't this discovered 3 weeks ago? It had a lot to do with how busy that lender was.
Yep.
So all I can say is, if your lender seems like he's too busy, find a new lender.
Yeah.
Because
I know.
the last 3 properties I've done something different, and it's gone much smoother.
Yeah.
But it seemed like the one that I had a whole lot of trouble with, this person was just covered up, and it's like, it seemed like every property they were doing, it was like last minute, let's open the file the day before. Oh, there's 5 things missing the day before. Let's get all this in order.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of those issues are coming in. They're not looking at these things because they can't. They're too busy.
Yeah, I agree with that. So anyway, that's, I'm gonna go, to the class, I'm not gonna go, I'm gonna sit in the 8 hours forms class on Thursday.
Well, that's like the trek I wanted to sit in, but you told me, I'm gonna wait, maybe they'll have
clean it.
in-person.
So when I do
Classes
that,
like that.
I've already done the 2 hour with Todd Scholler, but he just kinda touches the top of these form changes. Susan is the one that delves into it and tells me the why and what the purpose of the form is, the change or whatever. So I'm doing that Thursday. Once I do that, then I'll do individual videos, probably like I did last year, on 2 or 3 forms at a time, and y'all can go watch those.
Okay.
And or we may do the training session next month on the forms. It just just depends.
Well, if you do it here, then, ask people to come, and then we could watch it
Yeah,
in the video
yeah.
too. And
And you'll notice, I don't know if you've seen it, if you've noticed, but when you go into transaction desk, I am trying to get them to tell me, when you look and you see 2021 buyer packet or 2021 listing packet, you're gonna see now a 2017 do not use and a 2017 do not use. When you look at the templates there, they show the 2017. When you click on the 2021 template, it only shows you the 2021 template. I cannot get the 2 from 2017 to delete off of where you're looking at it, your first
Yeah.
screen when you go to. So I deleted the forms out of both of the 2017, so there'd be no confusion there. So it's an empty, basically, shell. But believe it or not, it's been 4 months, and once a month I follow back up and they don't have an answer for me. So they can't figure out how to delete those 2 things. So that's gonna look a little different when you go in. Just look over the 2000. It's not that we haven't tried to delete 2017 templates. We have, they just won't go anywhere. So you'll see that where it says do not use. That's why it says that. There's no forms in there. But anyway, not as many changes according to Todd's class. I took the 2 hours, not as many form changes, which is good. But you guys have any questions? Any suggestions? Anything?
Is there a way to weed out under your transactions, like to get rid of some that like you put an offer in and it didn't go anywhere? You know, your
Don't get rid
homepage,
of them.
Don't get rid of them, but you can,
hide them.
you can not hide them. You
Store
can,
I just print them off and put them in a file and put them in my
yeah,
I'm
stuff.
talking about in transactions.
in transaction desk, there's not an archive in there. I was thinking there was some sort of an archive, but I don't think there is an archive. Because I'm supposed to have, now if you didn't send a contract or an offer, then I don't need anything per se. In other words, if you had a client and it never went anywhere, I don't need that file. But if you sent an offer to anybody, whether it happened or didn't happen, I'm supposed to have copies of all of that in the file in case we're audited. I mean, if there's something in there, like I created one the other day with Faye for a lady that we thought was going to do a condo purchase in the River Plantation. She changed her mind last minute because health issues. I can delete that one because I didn't do anything with her information. But if you send it to somebody, it has to stay in there. But you can mark them closed.
Okay.
So even if it's, that's what I was thinking of. Even if it's in there, if you mark it closed, then it's going to move it further down your list, I think, when you're looking. And there's also a default that you can go in there and do like most recent, where you're only seeing your active things. I'd have to research on that, but I know you can do that because I changed mine last year to do that because I was seeing all of my stuff.
A question,
Mhm.
has anyone that you know been audited, just be audited with their files 7 years back? Or how long it's supposed to be, what is it, 5?
IRS, you're supposed to keep them, is it 7?
It used to be 7.
I never
think
can
IRS is
keep
7. Here, I mean, real estate files, I have all of mine, all the way back to the beginning. I've
I
never
have mine
deleted
too.
any, or never trashed anything. Only because they could change the statute of limitations on something today and me not have my file from 10 years ago. So I keep it all in my attic. I've got them
That's
labeled, and
amazing.
that's where I keep them.
I've heard you can be sued up to 10 years.
I was thinking 10 was
Yeah.
in my head. I didn't know if that was the case or not. But I just don't trash them. I'm a paper person, though. I mean, just like what happened with the explosion that day. You know, if something like that happened, I have paper of everything here. We could still function, even if we didn't have computer services. We could still function. And that just kind of drove that home to me when that explosion
I
happened
haven't
and we
thrown
didn't have
anything
phones for
away
3
as long
days.
as I've been a realtor, that's terrible, but I kept it all.
Yeah, I have to. I just do it to be on the safe side. But I would say at least 7 years back, maybe 10 years back, if you wanted to get rid of something, but I'm not getting rid of anything. So,
I'm just
Um,
afraid to.
I want to say one thing about Canva. I'll have a training session on it. It's been a little difficult before now because the graphic designer, at my request, had locked a lot of stuff. Well, by locking too much stuff, you couldn't add things to customize the piece. Like it said just listed. Well, you couldn't change it from just listed to open house or
Oh.
just listed to for sale or whatever headline you wanted. So she actually texted me Friday night, and I think she texted me or emailed over the weekend. So she's been working on it. So I'm going to go back in and look. And then when I find that it's right, then I'll start training you. And it is really, you go in, you
Easy
put
to
your
use.
cursor where you want it to be, you highlight what you want to delete, and you start typing. I mean,
Okay.
it's that simple. Pictures are a little bit wonky. You have to upload them, and I'll show you how to upload them. And then you do a checkbox, and it swaps that picture with what you want. So, all right, if we're done, I'm gonna 1 hour and 2 minutes.